explore, and hopefully, like after discussing that idea, we can link it back to the hypotheticals that I mentioned previously. Um, Actually, before that, I've got 2 points. I'm not sure if I should jump over them or not. Okay, maybe I'll jump over them for now, and we can come back to it later. Um, so I'm not that well read on objectivist ethics, as I've mentioned. I've only just started reading The Fountainhead recently, and I don't fully understand what altruism and selfishness means yet. But I agree that altruism that destroys values is bad, such as giving up your favorite shirt or giving charity to evil people who choose poverty. But I think that can be a sort of selfish altruism, which is basically something that seems altruistic, but it's actually just low time preference selfishness. And I think that's what Blue Button's high trust society argument is getting at. It's sort of related tangent, but what do you think of falling on a grenade, especially when you use your own body to cover a grenade to save others nearby?
Well, I think the idea is that if the grenade goes off, then you're very likely to die as well. Whereas I suppose there are different scenarios. There could be the grenade is thrown into the bunker. It's enclosed enough such that every motherfucker in that bunker is going to die if that grenade goes off. So then it's like, okay, well, you might as well throw yourself on the grenade. It's, you're not going to save yourself either way. Or the other scenario is you could get behind cover, in which case run for cover. Don't jump on the grenade. That's just suicidal.
Okay, so what if there's a situation where there's a grenade tossed in your direction, and you can try to flee and probably lose a limb but stay alive, but you will get harmed still. But many of us will also be wounded or killed if you run for it. Or you can fall on the grenade and cover it, and you will definitely die, but you will also save the others. Are you think that you should flee because, the worst case scenario is like you lose a limb or something?
Yeah, I think you should flee.
Okay, so what if the situation is like you're in a situation like this with people you love? Would you do the same answer?
Yeah, and I would want them to flee as well. I think a lot of the altruist rosy goggles can kind of be pulled away if you think, what would you recommend other people to do? And like the same in the button scenario. If you could coach your child on which one to pick, you'd say pick red 100% of the time. Because people often are more able to be selfish for others than they are for themselves. I think this is even like a Jordan Peterson thing. Is he says like treat yourself as you would treat a loved one. Care for yourself like you care for a loved one. And obviously I would not advocate that anybody I loved jump on a grenade. I would advocate that they get the hell out of there.
I think that it's context dependent, what I want other people to do. So here's, okay, so let me try to see if I can present my ideas on this. Let's say that you are in a strike team with and you're like part of a ancap rights enforcement agency, and you're part of a strike team going to neutralize an enemy, and you know your team really really well and you trust them. I think that in that case I would want to us to all agree upon if there's a grenade that will come, and if there's a grenade that gets thrown at us, the closest person should just fall on it and save the others. And if I can trust them to do the same, I think that everyone should do the same. If it's like the case where you sacrifice yourself to save the others, because so even though if you were the one even if you're the one who's closer to it, in that case you would be the one who sacrifices yourself to save all the others. But it's way more likely, because let's say that there's 5 people on the strike team, for example, it's only 20% chance that it's going to be you who's making a sacrifice, and over 80% of the time you're the one being saved. So it is self in the sense that it's by agreeing to this, you vastly increase your chances at staying alive, at being the one saved from a grenade, than being the one who actually dies for the grenade.
Yeah, and this might be a good policy in that the closest person is least likely to be able to get away in time anyway, right? So they're most likely to get maimed and killed by this thing regardless, so they might as well follow through and preserve the other people's lives.
Yeah, but okay, so I was thinking of abstracting this to a larger high trust society where I think that if we live in a society where everyone would choose to sacrifice themselves to save many, that would be good for everyone in the society, because it's way more likely for you to be the one being saved by someone else's sacrifice than being the one to die because you agree to the sacrifice.
I think what is worth going into is whether these things are actually objectively sacrifices. Because sacrifice, at least for the objectivists, it means giving up something of higher value for something of lower value. And now, so it might be the case that there's a time where you are dying, but you're not giving something of higher value for something of lower value. And someone in chat pointed out that Ayn Rand said she'd take a bullet for her husband, with the implication being that if she were to live without him, it would be so terrible, she would rather not be alive at all. And that does come up in some of the fiction as well, namely Atlas Shrugged. I won't give any spoilers as to the context of that, though. And I'm not sure I necessarily agree with her view on suicide, but she's very clear, like, okay, well, this isn't actually a sacrifice. So the question is whether it is a sacrifice or isn't a sacrifice. And now it's not clear that jumping on the grenade is necessarily a sacrifice. In those cases where it is a sacrifice, where you could have run away, and you know, people might get maimed, but they'll still be alive, then yeah, you shouldn't do it. You should tell people run the hell away from grenades.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to get at, is that something might seem like a sacrifice in the more colloquial sense, but it's not. You're not. I don't. As I said earlier, I don't support like giving up a higher value for a lower one. But I think that's like in the high trust society case, if you know and trust like the other people in the society, agreeing to this means like that's when you're not sacrifice. So I don't agree with sacrificing yourself for random people. That's why I say that I'm a red buttoner in the exact replica of the original question, because I don't care about like saving random people out there or like risking my life for them or like potentially dying because of them. But like I think this is what the blue buttons are getting at when they say high trust society, is that when you can like communicate and agree beforehand of like implementing like a rule of, okay, well, we all agree to press the blue button. I think that's in a case where you know everyone and you know that they are rational people and that they are good people. That's when you should all agree for the blue button, because
I'm not sure I agree with that, because if they're rational and good people, like if we're in like a Galt's Gulch or something, then they would all be able to come to the conclusion, no, just click the red button, let's not join this suicide pact by this madman who's come into town and started this suicide pact. Because you can quite readily, like, that you could start this exact button scenario right now. I could say, hey, next week on Friday, I will commit suicide unless, we've got 84 people watching right now, unless more than 40 people also agree to the suicide pact. It's like, okay, well, that seems insane. Like, I don't think anybody would join that. And of course, the blue buttons, their point is, well, the framing changes it. And I think if you can have this high trust society where you're able to collude beforehand, well, that does already change the framing, right? And it changes it massively towards red, in my view, because you can just simply say, like, look, guys, none of us have to die. Just don't press the suicide button.
What if, as people like mentioned, it isn't too clear on the problem, but what if like children are involved, or like really, really young babies, like 1 or 2 year olds who don't understand, and it's just picking buttons randomly. In the blue button case, you can coordinate to everyone agree to press the blue button, and then no one has to die, and then you save the children too. And in the red scenario, it's okay, you can get most people to save themselves, but the children, you can't actually reason with them to like convince them of like pressing any button because they're not old enough. That what it means to be a legal child is that they they can't express their will, right? They can't. They don't understand what pressing each button means.
Yeah, so maybe if you have like a tight knit enough community, you could all coordinate. On like I think there was one scenario somebody brought up in the Twitter space where it was like there's a fire coming and it's going to burn like everybody down, and you can get out of town, or you can like if enough people start fighting this fire, then they can stop it. If it's a tight knit enough community, then perhaps then say like, hey guys, let's go fight this fire, for the children which aren't able to run out of town because they don't understand what fire is yet, and they're gonna just go like, ooh, goo goo gaga, that's hot, and start crawling towards it and then get immolated.
Yeah, I think that expressed like my viewpoint on it, which I probably failed to like properly express myself. Wait, so do you agree that in cases where it's a tightly knit enough community, that's when it will be valid to like convince everyone to go for the blue button if you can actually coordinate and you trust people in the community? Yeah,
and it requires coordination is the thing. Without any coordination, you can't change the outcome. But with coordination, you absolutely can.
What if instead of... Okay, so the idea I'm thinking of right now is that instead of actually being able to coordinate or for an exact problem beforehand, what if you can, like before the question ever arises and before you ever think that such a problem exists, so you don't know what the specific problem is, should you try to like go for a general? So let's say that in the fire example, right, that everyone you can either flee town or try to like help put out the fire. Before this fire actually happens, we don't know that there's going to be this specific situation where, oh, this fire requires this many people to put out. And this, like, when, if everyone runs away, then, like, this percentage of children might just go towards fire. Like, before we have this exact situation, how should we prepare for it in terms of how we approach these sorts of situations ethically? So it's like, when if this situation ever appears in real life, it would be like we won't actually get to coordinate, right? If there's just a fire, you need to either run, get the hell out of there, or you need to put it out. So let's just say that right now, we don't know what might come up in the future. What should we generally propose as a general rule on how to deal with these situations?
So the general rule, of course, will be dependent on the context of what the specifics of the situation are. I would say, in general, you should be a red buttoner. You should try to, preserve life above all else. Your life is more important than other people's lives. Leave it to the firefighters, basically. Now that could change drastically. If I can't give you like a one sentence summary of what you should do, because I'd be trying to give a one sentence summary of the entire objectivist ethics. Like that's what the whole field of ethics is studying: how to conduct yourself, in any sort of situation.
Okay, so I think a question I want to ask is, let's say that you can have a covenant community. You can build a covenant community somewhere. Do you think it's necessarily a bad idea for the covenant community to have a rule of, say, if you join us, then you agree to basically not fleeing in the cases of fire or similar circumstances and helping to put it out, basically not picking what's immediately beneficial to you, but what's might not be immediately beneficial to you, but good for the whole town. Do you think that would be valid as a covenant?
Or like, a civil defense thing, like you've got to sign up to this militia. So the way you'd have to do that is, you can't enslave people, of course. So you'd have to just have like a penalty clause, like if you are a deserter in the face of this danger, then you agree to like forfeit some property, whatever it is.
I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be like a part of a covenant community contract, right? So I brought up covenant community to like signify that this is a community that like voluntarily associates and trusts each other. And like, do you think that it would be valid to just not even have a contract, but just like a mutual agreement that this is how we will approach these circumstances? Do you think it's a good idea to have these sort of agreements, or if it'll be a bad agreement and that we should just agree to, okay, everyone for themselves in these scenarios?
Well, so I think the better structure to deal with these things is insurance. If you have, like that's the structure which we use to deal with risk on the market, or in our daily lives. It's so I don't think it should be everyone band together immediately and try and solve it. It's like, no, pay an insurance provider for your property, insure it to whatever degree you want, and then you have spontaneous coordination. You don't have to. Right. Go through any of this like mutual agreement. Okay, what happens if there's a fire? What happens if this? What happens if that? You can just get insurance. You can get your fire insurance. You can get your aggression insurance. You can get insured against all these threats, and then let the market deal with it.
Ah, right. Yeah, I understand that now. When you like stretch it too far away from the original hypothetical, then other factors start coming into play too. Okay, so I guess I only have one last question like regarding this button thing, which is that on the podcast, I think someone asked a question of like, what if you were the last swing vote and you know that you're the last person to vote and you're the swing vote, and you said that you pressed blue in that circumstance. And then he asked the next question, which is that what if you are the second to last and red is currently leading by 1? And you change your answer to red. And I think the reason he gave was that you can't let someone else live for you. So in this case, red is basically definitely half of humanity dies, but blue basically makes someone else knowing the swing vote, like the previous question, who is likely to press blue but not guaranteed. So I'm wondering if you still stand by that decision, and if so, why? Can you explain better why you would change to red, and what you meant by you can't let someone else live for you.
Yes, so basically what I'm saying there is that your life is on the line. It's your decision. What do you want to do? You can't rely on some random unknown person to be living your life on your behalf and making your decisions on your behalf and basically puppeteering you, and just relying that they're going to make some decision which will benefit you. It's like in Go, there's a certain tendency some people have, newer players. I've been guilty of this certainly, where they will play relying on their opponent making a mistake. People do this in chess as well. You should never play in a way that relies on your opponent making a mistake for you to take advantage of it. In the same way here, you should never vote relying on somebody else voting a certain way. That's not how you should do it. It's your life, live it yourself.
I'm not too sure what you mean when you say like rely on others acting a certain way or voting a certain way, because isn't that what you always have to do in life? Let's say that you make a contract to like trade something with someone. You are relying on them going through with the trade and not screwing you over, right?
Yeah, and that's why we have entire structures, or at least ideally we would have entire structures built up to shoot them in the head if they get too far out of line. Now, yeah, in some degree, in order for you to live a flourishing life, it is necessary for other people to act in certain ways. Pardon me. But that doesn't mean that you should be throwing your life at the feet of any random person and hoping that they don't kill you. You should be living your life on your own, and if shit out of your control happens and everybody turns crazy and tries to kill you, well, then you're just kind of fucked.
I'm trying to figure out the principal difference between like just regularly relying on others in everyday life and throwing yourself at someone's feet and hoping that they don't kill you.
So in everyday life, I'm not the way in which I'm relying on other people is relying that they'll keep doing what is in their psychology to do, and that there hasn't been some sort of virus which warps everyone's mind to make them crazy or something, because that's what would have to happen, right? I am acting on reliable information that people tend to act in predictable ways, and they're not going to go crazy. Whereas in the button scenario, I have no means of predicting what this person is going to do. If I expose my neck and give a homeless man a knife, I have no reliable predictions on what that guy's going to do. That's why homeless, crazy people are scary. That's why people are afraid of crazy people, because you have no way of reliably predicting what sorts of behaviors they're going to engage in. Whereas for a normal person, you can reliably predict that they're not going to randomly start killing you, right?
I'd say that in this scenario, you can accurately predict what the next person is going to do, because if you picked blue, then it becomes a 50-50 red and blue, and basically the last person would be the swing vote. So, which means that they have no risk to themselves if they pick either red or blue, because if they pick blue, they would live because blue gets just one extra vote, so blue becomes majority. And if they pick red, they they live anyways. So they have the choice between either themselves living and 50% of all humanity dying and causing an apocalypse, which would be bad for them, or picking blue and they know that they live for sure, and they also know that the rest of humanity lives for sure. So you're basically relying on the last person not being a psychopath, which is
not psychopath. You're relying on them being a logical person, like a perfect logician in effect. Whereas I'm not going to rely on somebody to be a logician. I'm going to assume they're the median voter, in which case I have no idea what the hell they're going to click. They're just going to be effectively clicking at random, from my perspective.
Okay. So is it just a probability issue? Okay, what about if we change it from a person being the last person to vote into a probability machine that spits out a random number? Would that turn it into a continuum problem, or would you still maintain red no matter what the probability is?
Well, it would be a continuum problem in that a probability of 1, namely everybody survives, is principally different to a probability of 0, namely everyone dies.
What if it's somewhere between 0 and 1, non-inclusive?
Yeah. Well, then you just cut out the two ends of the continuum. Like you haven't change
Yeah,
things.
sure. So let's say 99% of in 99% of cases, the last vote will be red. Sorry, it will be blue, and then in 1% of cases it'll be red. So you picking red means guaranteed half of all humanity dies. You picking blue means 99% of the chance everyone's good and nothing happens, but 1% of the chance you die.
Yeah, so yeah, then I'd probably pick blue at 99%.
But okay, obviously, if the blue's 1%, then you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a continuum problem.
Yeah, and you know, there is some very, very small likelihood right now that a errant gamma ray burst instantly evaporates all life on Earth. So, you know, it's not necessarily so far-fetched that there could be like a infinitesimally small chance that everybody dies.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up if you disagreed that it was a continuum. Wait, so if it is a continuum, how do we... Is there a principle to like determine which... how you should vote in which circumstances?
So I think the principle is, I think it does just go back to objectivist ethics. It's what actually... sorry, I'm just checking my stream health here. It's saying stream is healthy on YouTube, but on Restream it's saying not. Oh well. So yeah, sorry, can you repeat the question?
Basically, what do we use to determine when we should flip our answers? So like in which percentages we should pick red and in which percentages we should pick blue?
Yeah, so I think the principle is just objectivist ethics. So it's, you got to think through, you know, in the context of your life. Like I can't give you like some particular percentage at which that's the correct percentage in which to flip from blue to red and vice versa. It's going to be somewhere in there, and you've got to evaluate the context of your life.
Right. Okay, yeah, I think that's everything I had to ask.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that was a really productive conversation, and you definitely convinced me of a few things.
Oh, yeah, well, thank you for having it. Let me just let's go through the super chats, and then we can do the watch together. Unfortunately, it will have to be fucking stinky Discord watch together, but oh well.
I have no idea how that works, so you have to tell me when we get to it.
Yeah. So we got Ariel David 95 for $5 US. Thank you very much. If you press red and nothing happens, did another X user not pose another hypothetical scenario about a green button where the red pressers also die? Yeah, there was a few of those. And interestingly, a lot of the blue people were suddenly no longer concerned about people randomly clicking buttons, and they're like, yeah, kill the red people, kill them. Okay, so I don't think it's necessarily motivated by just not wanting anybody to die. I think they have an ideological hatred of red button pressers because they're altruists.
Yeah, most people are evil.
Yeah.
This is why, like, for my blue button defense, I often try to narrow it down to like me saying, okay, in the real world scenario, with everyone involved, I would press red.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we can narrow it down to like a specific community of people you trust, I think that's when the blue argument is valid.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of altruism, Diego Amateur for 2,500 CLP, thank you very much, says props to Mentis Wave for calling out this as altruism rather than doing the suicidal empathy shit. Yeah, you get that a lot on the right where they are altruists themselves, but they'll like